The hidden force awakens. The Galactic Empire had ruled the stars for centuries. It was a force so powerful that no one dared to challenge it. The Empire's ships filled the skies, their weapons capable of crushing entire worlds. They controlled everything from the smallest planets to the largest space stations. For as long as anyone could remember, no one had even come close to threatening their dominance. The Empire's leaders, sitting high in their Grand Council chambers, thought their power was unstoppable. They believed the galaxy was theirs to control, and no one could take that from them. They had crushed rebellions, destroyed entire fleets, and silenced any who dared oppose them. To them, humanity was nothing. A young species, stuck on a single planet, their ships primitive and weak. The Empire didn't even think it was worth keeping track of them. Humans, after all, were not a threat. But what they didn't know was that, far away on the edges of the galaxy, humanity was quietly preparing something that would change everything. For years, Earth's leaders had been secretly gathering the best scientists, engineers, and soldiers. They had been building fleets of warships, more powerful than any the Empire had ever seen. Hidden in the depths of uncharted space, these ships were waiting. Waiting for the right moment to strike. The Empire had no idea this was happening. They were too busy expanding their rule, too sure of their own invincibility. They had ignored the signs, the whispers from the farthest reaches of the galaxy. They didn't know that the humans were about to reveal a force they had never imagined. Then, it happened. Out of nowhere, a fleet of warships appeared in the void of space, emerging from hidden jump points. The first ship appeared without warning, its dark, sleek form gliding silently through the stars. It was massive, its guns bristling with deadly energy. The Empire's sensors didn't catch it. Their ships didn't see it coming. Before the Empire could react, the human fleet launched its first strike. The ships fired their weapons in unison, their energy blasts tearing through the Empire's defenses with shocking speed. The explosions rocked the Empire's forces, sending shockwaves through their communication systems. The Empire's fleet was caught completely off guard. In the command center of the Empire's fleet, chaos erupted. Officers scrambled to understand what was happening. "What is this? Where did they come from?" a commander shouted as the human warships continued their assault. They had no idea how the humans had managed to build such a powerful fleet in secret. The humans had kept their plans hidden for years, and now, it was too late to stop them. The Empire quickly attempted to respond, sending their ships to intercept the attackers. But the humans were ready. Their ships were faster, more agile, and their weapons more advanced. Every time the Empire's ships tried to retaliate, they were met with precise, deadly fire. It was clear that this was no ordinary fleet. The humans had come prepared for this moment, and they were not going to hold back. As the battle raged on, the Empire's command structure began to fall apart. Officers shouted orders, but nothing worked. Ships that had once been unbeatable were now being torn apart by the human forces. The Empire's once proud fleet was no match for the surprise of the human warships. The humans were everywhere, attacking from unexpected angles, never giving the Empire a chance to regroup. On the surface of the Empire's capital world, the leaders sat in their towering palaces, still oblivious to the storm that was unfolding in the stars. They had heard nothing, seen nothing. They had assumed their power was absolute. But now, as they looked to the skies, they would soon realize that their empire was about to fall. Back in the heart of the battle, the human fleet pushed forward, showing no signs of slowing down. Their ships moved with purpose, their commanders calm and focused, knowing that this was the moment they had waited for. The Empire's terror was just beginning. They had underestimated humanity, and now they would pay the price. The first wave of destruction was over in moments. But the humans were not finished. This was just the beginning of something far greater. The Empire's leaders had no idea what was coming next. The first strike had shattered their defenses, but the humans had more ships, more weapons, and more surprises in store. As the Empire tried to regain control, they realized something terrifying. They had no idea how many more warships the humans had hidden. The human fleet had emerged from the darkness of space, and it had struck with such power that it left the Empire trembling. For the first time in centuries, the Galactic Empire was on the back foot. The human fleet had awoken, and the Empire had no idea how to stop them. The galaxy had changed forever, and the humans were only getting started. The war fleets unleashed. The first wave of human warships had hit the Empire like a storm, and the Empire had been completely unprepared. But the humans were far from done. As the dust from the initial explosions began to settle, the Empire's fleet tried to regroup, but it was clear that they were outmatched. The humans had planned this for years, and now the galaxy was witnessing the true power of Earth's military might. A second wave of warships emerged from the dark void of space. They came in greater numbers, their engines glowing bright as they cut through the stars with precision. The Empire, reeling from the first attack, barely had time to react before the next wave hit. The human fleet didn't hesitate. They attacked with ruthless efficiency, their weapons blasting apart Imperial ships like they were made of paper. On the Empire's command ship, the atmosphere was tense. Officers scrambled to issue orders, but they were too late. The humans were everywhere, attacking from all sides, each ship moving with perfect coordination. The Empire's fleet was large, but it was sluggish and disorganized compared to the humans. The battle quickly became a nightmare for the Empire. Human warships didn't just fight with superior weapons, they fought with strategy. Every move was calculated. They used the environment to their advantage, drawing the Empire's ships into traps, where they could strike with devastating force. The Empire's commanders tried to regain control, but they had no idea how to deal with an enemy that fought with such unpredictability. Thousands of laser beams and plasma bolts filled the sky as the two fleets clashed. Explosions rocked the stars, and debris scattered through space like a deadly rain. The Empire's ships, once the pride of the galaxy, were being torn apart one by one. Some tried to retreat, but the humans were relentless. No ship was spared. For every Imperial vessel that tried to escape, two more human ships appeared to block their path, cutting them off. The humans were not just fighting, they were conquering. The fear and panic spreading through the Empire's ranks were palpable. They had underestimated the humans, and now, it was too late. In the heart of the battle, a young human captain named Alex Carter stood at the helm of the flagship Aurora. His eyes were cold and focused as he watched the Empire's ships disintegrate on his monitors. He had trained for this moment his entire life, and now, the time had come to take back the galaxy. He had no mercy for the Empire. Every shot, every move he made was calculated for one purpose, to ensure the Empire's downfall. The people of Earth had suffered under the Empire's cruel rule for too long, and now it was time to make them pay. "We can't let them regroup, Captain," his first officer, Maya, said, looking over at him. "The Empire is trying to consolidate their forces. If we give them a chance, they could mount a counteroffensive." Captain Carter nodded, his expression hardening. "No more waiting. We strike now. Push them back, and don't give them a moment to breathe. This battle ends today." The Aurora and its fleet moved in, the first wave of human ships pushing forward with deadly force. The Empire's remaining ships tried to form a defensive line, but they were no match for the human speed and firepower. As the human ships pressed on, they destroyed the Empire's key military stations, rendering their ability to respond even further useless. The Empire's once thriving starbases were reduced to rubble, their vital resources slipping through their fingers. It was a humiliating blow. On the surface of the Empire's homeworld, panic began to spread among the political leaders. They had never imagined a situation where they were not in control. Their once sturdy empire was crumbling, and no one knew how to stop it. They sent out desperate messages to their allies, but no one could answer. The rest of the galaxy had either been too afraid of the Empire or too isolated to help. Now, they were alone. Humanity's warships showed no sign of stopping. The Empire's great fleets, once a symbol of invincibility, were being wiped out one by one. There was no escape, no way out. The human fleets had come, and they had come with a vengeance. In the depths of space, the final clash began. Human ships moved in for the kill, and the Empire's defenses crumbled before them. The humans had achieved what had once seemed impossible. They had destroyed the Empire's strongest fleets, and now, they were taking control of the galaxy's future. The Empire's leaders, now completely isolated and unable to stop the onslaught, knew their time was up. The humans had already claimed victory, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The human warships, now victorious, began to turn their attention toward the next step of their plan. The galaxy had fallen into their hands. And as the last of the Empire's ships disintegrated into the void, the humans made it clear, the galaxy was theirs to shape. The Empire had fallen. Humanity had risen. The Empire's desperation. The stars above the Empire's capital world burned bright, but the light seemed distant now, as if the galaxy was witnessing the last gasps of an empire long past its prime. The once mighty Galactic Empire, its ships feared across the galaxy, was now crumbling into dust. The humans had brought down their greatest defenses in mere days, and the Empire's leadership found themselves standing at the edge of extinction. In the war rooms of the Empire, commanders and generals scrambled, trying to formulate a plan, but there was no plan left. The humans had dismantled every piece of their military might. Their fleets were gone, their starbases destroyed, and their warships reduced to floating wreckage in space. For the first time in history, the Empire's leaders were at a loss. "We must act now," screamed General Varek, slamming his fist onto the cold metallic table. His voice echoed through the room, filled with anger and panic. "We cannot afford to lose the fleet. Call in the reserve forces, everything we have." But even as he spoke, he knew the truth. There were no more reserves. The humans had anticipated their every move. The Empire's best ships had already been annihilated in the first wave, and their remaining forces were in chaos. There was nothing left to send. Admiral Korath, one of the highest-ranking officers still alive, stood motionless by the window. He stared out at the burning remnants of the fleet. "We are finished," he muttered, more to himself than to anyone else. "The human warfleets are like ghosts, appearing without warning, attacking from every direction. They've shown us no mercy." The room fell silent. The weight of defeat hung heavy in the air. Desperation had set in. The Emperor, once a figure of unimaginable power, now sat in his throne room, his face pale and his mind racing. The galaxy had bent to his will for decades, but in mere moments, everything had changed. How had humanity managed to build such a force in secret? How had they hidden their strength, out of sight for so long? He turned to his advisors, his voice trembling. "There must be something we can do. We cannot just let them take everything we have worked for." An advisor stepped forward, shaking. "Your Majesty, there is one last weapon left. It's risky, but it might be our only chance." The Emperor's eyes narrowed. "Explain." The advisor hesitated. "It's a prototype, a weapon like no other. It's capable of destroying entire fleets in a single blow. It's been hidden for years, kept secret even from the highest generals. But, it's untested. We can't be sure it will work." The Emperor's face hardened. "I don't care. We must try. I will not go down without a fight." The final weapon. In the heart of the Empire's last remaining stronghold, deep below the surface of the capital world, scientists worked furiously to prepare the final weapon. It was a massive device, powered by the rarest and most dangerous material known in the galaxy, an unstable core of dark matter, capable of creating a singularity. The weapon had been designed to destroy fleets in a single, catastrophic blast. As the scientists worked, they felt the weight of the galaxy on their shoulders. This weapon was their last hope, but they knew that if it failed, the Empire would be finished. And if it succeeded, it would destroy everything within 1,000 light-years. The risks were unimaginable. "Is it ready?" asked General Varek, pacing nervously as the countdown began. "It will be, in just a few minutes," the lead scientist replied, sweat beading on his forehead. "But once it's fired, there will be no turning back. We will unleash a force that can't be controlled." Varek's jaw tightened. "Fire it. We have no choice." The final countdown. Back in the depths of space, humanity's warfleets were closing in on the Empire's last remaining stronghold. The humans knew the Empire would not go down quietly. They had anticipated this final move, an act of desperation. The Empire would try to unleash its secret weapon, but humanity had already prepared a countermeasure. Captain Alex Carter stood at the helm of the Aurora, his face calm despite the enormity of the moment. "Prepare the countermeasures," he ordered. His voice was steady, though the threat before them was unlike anything they had faced. The weapon the Empire was preparing to fire was the galaxy's last hope for survival. But humanity was determined to prevent it from succeeding. "Countermeasures online," Maya said, her voice tight with concentration. "We're ready, Captain." Alex stared at the Empire's stronghold on the holoscreen. "Fire when ready," he said simply. With a surge of power, the Aurora and its fleet unleashed their own secret weapon. A precise, well-aimed strike of energy pulses moved toward the Empire's weapon. The blast struck the core just moments before the Empire could fire, causing the dark matter to destabilize and erupt in a burst of energy. The explosion was unlike anything seen before. A shockwave rippled through space, and for a moment, the galaxy held its breath. Then, silence. The aftermath. When the smoke cleared, the Empire's final weapon was gone. The stronghold where it had been hidden was nothing but a massive crater in the planet's surface. The Empire's leadership had been wiped out in an instant, and their last hope had failed. Humanity's fleet hovered in the aftermath, their warships moving carefully through the wreckage. The Empire had tried to fight back with its last, desperate move, but they had failed. Captain Carter stood silently, watching the aftermath of the explosion. The Empire's reign had finally come to an end. The galaxy was free. But the humans knew this victory wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. They had toppled the Empire, but the galaxy was vast. And now, humanity would have to rebuild, forge new alliances, and navigate a galaxy that had just witnessed their incredible rise to power. The fall of the Empire. The collapse of the Empire was swift and final. With the destruction of their secret weapon, the Empire's last hope of regaining control had vanished. For years, they had ruled the galaxy with an iron fist, suppressing revolts, crushing rebellions, and annihilating anyone who stood in their way. But now, their vast empire lay in ruins. Their power had crumbled, and the once feared leadership was no more. On the capital world, the Emperor's palace, once a symbol of unchallenged power, was nothing more than a burned-out shell. The regal halls where decisions were made and victories were celebrated were now abandoned, the corridors echoing with the footsteps of the last few survivors. The Empire's leaders had either fallen in battle, fled in disgrace, or been captured. Those who remained were now prisoners to a new, unstoppable force. Across the galaxy, the human warships moved like shadows through the stars. They had defeated the Empire in battle, and now they were methodically taking control of the territories that had once been under imperial rule. No corner of the galaxy was untouched. With each passing day, more and more systems declared their loyalty to humanity, and the last remnants of the Empire struggled to hold on to anything that could resemble power. But there were still pockets of resistance. The loyalists who refused to believe that the Empire was gone. They clung to old ideals, clinging to the hope that the Empire could rise again. They fought back, but they were outmatched. Humanity's warfleets, though exhausted from the long campaign, were still formidable. They swept through any remaining strongholds with brutal efficiency. The humans were not interested in mercy. They had a galaxy to reshape, and there was no room for the past. The last stand. In a remote corner of the galaxy, the last remaining Imperial fleet, what was left of it, prepared for one final stand. It was a fleet cobbled together from the wreckage of previous battles, a last-ditch effort to save the Empire from its inevitable downfall. The fleet, led by Admiral Korath, had nothing left to lose. "We fight for the Empire's legacy," Admiral Korath said, his voice thick with both grief and defiance. "We fight because if we do not, all that we have built will be lost forever." But even as he spoke, Korath knew that their chances were slim. The humans had already defeated the Empire's finest fleets. What was left of the Imperial forces was a shadow of their former might. Still, the loyalty of the soldiers could not be denied. They had been trained to fight until the very end. In the command center of their flagship, the Ravager, Korath stared at the display, watching as the human warships advanced toward them. He felt a deep sense of despair. The battle would be their final one. There would be no more battles to fight after this. This was the last stand of the Galactic Empire. "We hold the line," Korath muttered to himself. "We do not surrender. We will not go quietly." But deep down, he knew it was futile. The Empire had failed. The fall of the throne. Back on Earth, Captain Alex Carter stood on the deck of the Aurora, gazing out at the remnants of the Empire's fleet as it scattered across the stars. The war was all but over. The Empire was finished. It had been a hard-fought victory, but humanity had prevailed. Their war fleets had proven unstoppable, their will unbreakable. "Victory is ours," Maya said softly, her voice filled with both relief and disbelief. Alex nodded but said nothing. The victory was theirs, but the cost had been high. Many lives had been lost, both human and imperial. The galaxy had been torn apart in the process. And while humanity had triumphed, they knew the real challenge had only just begun. They had defeated the Empire, but they would now need to rebuild a fractured galaxy. It would not be easy. The Aurora's comms crackled to life. "Captain Carter," a voice said. "Admiral Korath's fleet is preparing for one final confrontation. It's the last of the Empire's forces. They've made their stand on the moon of Varanus. What are your orders?" Alex turned to Maya. "We end this. We make sure the Empire can never rise again. The final blow." The final battle was brutal, even by the standards of the conflict that had come before it. The human fleet, though weary from months of fighting, was more than ready to finish what they had started. They advanced toward the Imperial fleet with a calculated fury, knowing that the galaxy's future hung in the balance. The Empire's remaining ships fought fiercely, launching wave after wave of desperate attacks. But their efforts were in vain. The human fleet, though smaller in numbers, was more advanced, more coordinated, and more determined. The battle stretched for hours, the stars above Varanus lighting up with the flashes of plasma fire. Finally, Admiral Korath's flagship, the Ravager, was the last to fall. The Empire's last hope crumbled as the human warships tore through its defenses. Korath himself was captured, his last words bitter with the realization that his empire had failed. His soldiers, once proud, now lay broken on the battlefield. And with that, the last remnants of the Galactic Empire were wiped out. The aftermath, a new era. The galaxy was silent. The human warships moved slowly, their engines humming as they surveyed the wreckage. There was no more fighting. No more destruction. The Empire was gone. Its power, its arrogance, its cruelty, all of it had been wiped away by the humans who had once been its weakest subjects. Humanity stood at the threshold of a new era. The galaxy, now free from the Empire's grasp, was theirs to rebuild. There would be no more empires. No more tyrants. Humanity would lead with strength, but also with wisdom. They had learned from the mistakes of the past, and now they would create a future where peace, freedom, and justice would reign. But even as they celebrated their victory, they knew the road ahead would be difficult. The galaxy was vast, and many challenges still lay ahead. But humanity had proven its strength. And as they looked toward the stars, they knew one thing for certain: the Empire's reign was over. And a new age had begun. A new dawn. The war was over, but the work had just begun. The galaxy, once ruled by a ruthless and oppressive empire, was now free. But freedom came with its own set of challenges. The humans, victorious in battle, now found themselves tasked with the monumental task of rebuilding the galaxy, ensuring peace, and forging a new path forward. They had proven their strength, but now they needed to prove their wisdom. Captain Alex Carter stood on the observation deck of the Aurora, looking out at the stars that stretched endlessly before him. The battle had been long, but the price of victory had been steep. Thousands of human lives had been lost, and many more in the Empire had perished in the chaos. The galaxy was scarred, but it was not beyond hope. Maya, Alex said softly, his voice full of quiet determination. We've won, but the real challenge starts now. We need to rebuild, but we need to do it right. We can't just take the Empire's place. Maya, standing next to him, nodded. The galaxy is fractured, but it's not beyond repair. We have the strength to rebuild, but we have to be smart about it. We can't let the mistakes of the past haunt us. Alex turned to face her. We have to be better. The Empire ruled through fear and control. We will rule through unity and hope. We'll build a future where no one has to live under the shadow of tyranny again. As the Aurora cruised through the empty expanse of space, Alex knew that the road ahead would not be easy. There would be worlds that resented humanity's rise to power, systems that had grown comfortable under imperial rule. Some might even seek to rise up against them, eager to fill the power vacuum left behind. But Alex was ready. Humanity had proven that they could rise against impossible odds, and now it was time to show the galaxy that they could lead with compassion. A rebuilding coalition. To guide humanity's next steps, Alex and the human fleet began to form a coalition of worlds, those who had stood with them in the battle against the Empire and those who had long been oppressed. This coalition would be the foundation of the new galaxy. It would not be a single empire, but a united federation of planets, each with its own voice, its own leaders, and its own laws. The people of Earth, once scattered and divided, now stood united under a common cause. The Galactic Council, once a place of oppression, corruption, and fear, would be transformed into a symbol of democracy, a forum where all voices could be heard. On the surface of Earth, massive reconstruction projects began. Cities that had been devastated during the long years of war were rebuilt. The scars of battle were healed, not just physically, but emotionally. Humanity had fought for freedom, and now it was time to embrace the ideals that would define their new era. Across the galaxy, former imperial strongholds were dismantled. The weapons of war were stored away, not for future conflict, but to be used only in defense. The focus was now on healing, on building, and on ensuring that the mistakes of the past were never repeated. The reconciliation process. Not all systems were eager to join humanity's new order. Many planets that had lived under imperial control for centuries were unsure whether humanity could truly lead without becoming what the Empire had once been. It was here that humanity's greatest challenge would come. Convincing those who had been oppressed by the Empire for so long that their new leaders would not be like the tyrants of the past. Alex Carter was tasked with leading the first of many diplomatic missions. Alongside Maya, he journeyed to the distant world of Valterra, once a stronghold of imperial power. The Valterrans had suffered under the Empire's iron grip for generations, and they were skeptical of humanity's promises. When Alex and Maya arrived on Valterra, they were met with cold stares and distrust. The people of the planet had long been subjected to imperial brutality, and they had little reason to trust any new regime. Yet Alex stood before their leaders, not as a conqueror, but as a fellow survivor, one who had fought for a better future. "We know what you've suffered," Alex said during his speech to the Valterran Council. "And we don't expect you to trust us right away. But we will work alongside you. We will not impose our will. We will listen, and we will build together. This is not the Empire. This is a new beginning, for all of us. The Valtran leaders exchanged uncertain glances. It was a hard pill to swallow, but after a tense silence, they agreed to join the Federation. Slowly but surely, others would follow suit. A galaxy united. As the years passed, the Federation grew stronger. The galaxy began to heal, with old wounds slowly being closed. Humanity's leadership was tested at every turn, but with each new challenge, they proved that they were worthy of their place at the head of this new age. Captain Alex Carter, now known as the first Chancellor of the United Galactic Federation, looked out at the stars once again. The journey had been long, and it had cost much. But humanity had emerged from the darkness of the Empire's rule and was now standing on the precipice of a new era of peace and cooperation. Humanity's victory wasn't just about defeating the Empire, Alex said to Maya, who stood beside him on the observation deck. It was about proving that we can be better. That we can create a future where all voices are heard, where every world has a place at the table. We didn't just conquer the stars. We earned the right to lead them. The Federation had its challenges ahead, no doubt. But humanity had proven that they were more than just warriors. They were dreamers, builders, and leaders. And now, the galaxy was theirs to shape. And as the stars stretched out before them, Alex Carter smiled, knowing that the work was far from over. The new dawn had just begun.